Beautiful. Well, all right. Welcome everyone, and welcome Simon. Simon, you and I met about a month ago? Maybe was the Bitcoin Freedom Festival here in Uvita, Costa Rica, sometime in the last weeks. Um,
Yes, yeah, it feels like a month ago now, doesn't it? Yeah, time's flown.
yeah, so there was a Bitcoin Freedom Festival here in Uvita, which is a pretty special place in Costa Rica. Has anybody here been to Uvita, Costa Rica before? Or is anyone currently living in Uvita, Costa Rica right now? One, two, three, four, five, six. Cool. We got a strong presence. I know Corby has, even though he's not on screen. I know he has. So we've got like a majority. We could win a presidential election with this kind of vote. Um, but um, so Vita's a really special place in relationship to money because there's an app here called Bitcoin Jungle, which has been basically mass adopted. So basically every single store, cafe, hotel, hostel, this kind of thing in Uvita, you can pay in Bitcoin. It's like a completely onboarded ecosystem here in Uvita, Costa Rica. And it's also the home of the Bitcoin Freedom Festival where I met Simon. And Simon and I got connected and he started telling me all about NOSTR, which is a protocol that's supporting an ecosystem of apps being developed that is just feels deeply in integrity and in alignment with things that the Our Emerging Future cares about. And a lot of what Our Emerging Future's reason for being has been sourced from. So I asked Simon if he'd be open to coming in today and sharing more about Noster, sharing more about his work in the world, and also just being available for any of our questions about blockchain, about Bitcoin, and what this protocol makes possible. So maybe you all can join me in welcoming Simon and giving him some love and appreciation for being here and being open to sharing with us. Yeah, thanks to you. And
Thank
welcome,
you.
Simon. It's good to have you.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So I want to say anybody at any time, feel free to ask a question. This is not like a one-on-one interview to Simon in front of everyone. This is all of us can ask him questions. But Simon, why don't you share with us, for starters, just tell us a little bit about what is Noster.
Okay, yeah. So NOSTR, um, to start with, the word itself stands for notes and other stuff transmitted on relays, which doesn't tell you a great deal about what it is. It is a new protocol, um, and I think protocols are something that we all use, but many of us know very little about. So the internet itself is a protocol. HTTP is a language which enables web browsers to talk to each other. Um, and that's all based on a protocol that was invented back in the 60s, which is called TCP/IP. So these are two languages which computers can use to communicate with each other in the network. So if one computer sends data to another, it doesn't mean anything unless the other computer has the same rule set as the computer that sends the information. So the best analogy for this one is like speaking English. So I can speak to Forrest in English, but if Forrest doesn't know the rules of English, then I'm just making weird, unintelligible noises at him. Because he does know the rules of English, he's able to make sense of what I'm saying. So exactly the same thing applies between computers. If I have a computer that runs a web browser that understands HTTP, then when I connect to somebody else's computer that's offering a web page, I can take their stream of data, which is essentially just a lot of ones and zeros, and my computer can turn that into a web page which looks nice, maybe gives me ways to connect with my friends, maybe lets me send emails, maybe does all kinds of other things. So that's how the internet really evolved. That was kind of 1989. Tim Berners-Lee invented HTTP, and that meant people could share web pages, which they were not really able to do before. And there's been a lot of work done building applications on top of HTTP since then. There's multiple different web browsers that you can use that all use that protocol, but it's all ways of communicating between computers and having this network, which we all find incredibly useful and in many ways we're all actually quite dependent on now. The interesting thing about the internet is it doesn't give anyone the ability to have an identity in itself. So you can use the internet, but the only way you can really have an identity on the internet is having a record in somebody else's database. So I've got a Twitter account and I can share that with people. They can connect with me. But my Twitter profile only exists in Twitter's database. I've got a Instagram account and my profile on Instagram exists within Instagram's database. So they effectively own my data. They control my data. They grant me access to my account and they enable me to connect with the people that I want to connect with. They enable me to post on their platform. They own it. It's theirs. If they want me to not post on their platform because they don't like the things I'm saying, then they can stop me posting. They could even delete my account if they want to. So the NOSTR protocol was developed. The guy that started it is called Fiat Jeff. He's anonymous, just like Satoshi Nakamoto. When he first started, it was during the COVID crisis, and Twitter was having people's accounts blocked or deleted because of things they were saying about vaccines on Twitter. Same thing was happening on Facebook and lots of the other big social media. So they wanted to create something where the users would own their own data and there wasn't the possibility of censoring what people said. There wasn't the possibility of blocking people's accounts. So what you have with NOSTR is when you use a NOSTR application, and you can't effectively connect through NOSTR itself, you have to go through a NOSTR application, just like you can't connect with the internet without a browser. Then you have to use a browser to communicate with the internet. So you need to use a NOSTR application to create an identity on NOSTR. And what you will get then is a public and private key, both of which are a long string of unintelligible characters, which you need to note down in your notes or somewhere else, write them down, keep them safe. If I give somebody else my NOSTR public key, then they can find me on NOSTR, they can connect with me, they can see what I post. I wouldn't give anyone my NOSTR private key because that's what I can use to recreate my identity on any NOSTR application. So if I spend time building my profile on something like Primal's like the NOSTR equivalent of Twitter. People post on there, other people connect with them, people comment. If I spend my time building my profile there, building my connections, and Primal starts to treat me badly, maybe they want to censor me, maybe they want to stop me talking about red cabbages or something obscure like that. Or maybe they want to delete me entirely, or maybe they want to push ads on me. Maybe they want to start collecting my data and selling it to advertisers and monetizing my activity online. All of these things I don't want them to do. So if they do any of those things, I'm going to take my private key and I'm going to put it into another NOSTR application that does something very similar to what Primal does, and there are plenty. And my account will be created within that new application. I'll have all the work that I've done before, all the connections that I've built, and I'll be able to connect through that NOSTR protocol using my native NOSTR identity that I own. As long as I don't give the private key to anybody else, it's mine. Nobody else can use it. Public key is always there to make me searchable if I want to be. You can have as many NOSTR identities as you like. You can include them. You can include information about yourself in the real world in your NOSTR identity, or you can be completely anonymous. It's entirely up to you. So it gives us self-sovereign identity. It gives us freedom, and it stops big companies from controlling our data, controlling what we can see and what we can access. The really clever part of it that wasn't there at the beginning when they built NOSTR, it's only actually been there for less than a year, is the fact that as a NOSTR user, you can zap other NOSTR users. So if I'm on Primal and I see Forrest on Primal as well, and he's created some funny video about cats or people falling off of their park benches or something, and I like the work that he's done, I can zap him some Bitcoin. So the protocol uses Bitcoin Lightning, which is obviously enables very fast, very cheap payments on a peer-to-peer basis that don't go through the banking system. So no third party can stop me sending money to Forrest. If I like his video, I send him maybe 10 cents or maybe $10 or whatever I want to send him. I can do it through NOSTR. The idea would be that if I send him, say, $1 and a million other people like his video as well, and they all send him $1, then he will be a millionaire for the work that he's done there, which is a great achievement. NOSTR is nowhere near big enough for that to happen right now. It's very early stage technology. It's only really been used for the last year or so, and there's about 500,000 registered accounts. But in practice, yeah, there's something between 20 and 50,000 daily active users. So it's an early stage technology, but the fundamentals are so strong. I believe it will actually be the next layer of the internet, because any application that currently exists on the internet can be built on top of NOSTR. So you could have a YouTube, you could have Amazon, you could have any different application that currently exists. And with all of those applications, you'll be able to access using your identity when you've built a reputation over time. If I'm buying something from somebody on the NOSTR version of Amazon, I'll be able to see what they've been doing in the social media space or any other space for the last period of time that they've been doing it. And it gives them more credibility. It gives them a level of trust that we probably wouldn't currently have, because in existing internet, you register for an account with each individual service, use username, password, which of course are hackable. So yeah, it's a better way of interacting with the internet, a better way of interacting with people. It puts power back into the hands of the users, and it creates a potential for a very fair monetization system for creators. What you currently have, if you are a creator of digital content, is your options are to put things on YouTube or on Spotify, or try to get enough customers that you can actually sell them on a subscription to your service through Substack or something like that. Yeah, I mean, if you are an independent creator and you're trying to earn money through YouTube, you're probably earning 0.001 cents per stream. It doesn't amount to a whole lot of money, even if you've got millions of followers. So what a lot of creators have to do is put ads in their content, which isn't great for us consumers. On top of that, you've got the ads from the platforms themselves. So yeah, with NOSTR, it's very resistant against the advertising model because it's so easy to transfer between apps. Any apps that are pushing ads through there will effectively just get less customers, and they will lose traction. So it's likely to emerge and evolve as an advertising free alternative. And of course, the advertising is the only financial incentive for any kind of media platform to collect customers' data. So most of us are aware that Facebook and the others are collecting data on everything we say, everything we do. We don't really like it. We don't really see an alternative, most of us, because we want to use those services. They are free. We've got used to having things for free. We are paying with our data. But with NOSTR, you have the option to pay with Zaps for content that you like as tips, or you could use it for free and not zap anybody. You're not contributing to the community if you do that, but maybe eventually you will find something that you do actually want to donate to, or maybe you'll start creating content yourself and earn Bitcoin by being a creator on that platform. So yeah, it's a very different financial model. It's a very different incentive system, but it's one that potentially solves a lot of problems that we all know exist on the internet that we use today. And most of us, when we think about those problems, can't see any way of solving them. And that's certainly the direction I've come from, where I, for a very long time, have had quite a lot of anxiety about the way the internet has evolved, how it's become very much a big brother system. It's probably the most sophisticated surveillance system ever known to man. But yeah, Bitcoin Lightning and NOSTR appear to be presenting the best opportunity that I've seen to build something that circumvents that monetization system that is leading to a control system. The key thing to note there is the technology that really makes it work is micropayments. So when you're paying for something using a credit card or PayPal, any form of internet payment that we have at the moment, with PayPal will charge a minimum 30 cents. Credit card companies charge a minimum of 15 cents, well, more than that. So small payments using traditional payment systems online are really kind of geared to only work with larger transactions. And that's why we've gone down the subscription model, because if you're charging somebody $7 a month for a service, then the transaction fee isn't significantly high enough to worry about. But if you want to charge somebody 50 cents for reading a news article, and I'm sure all of us had that situation where we're trying to find some information, we find it on a news article, you're able to read the first 1/3 of the article, and then they want you to subscribe in order to get beyond the paywall to read the rest of the article. But of course, you don't actually want to subscribe because you know it's going to get stuck on your bank account. And after 6 months, you'll remember that you didn't actually cancel that free trial and you've been paying $7 a month for 6 months for something you haven't really used. So in reality, we all quietly object to subscriptions, but again, we feel like, what is the alternative? How do we use this service without these things that are being forced upon us? So yeah, micropayments have huge potential because in that scenario, you could have a blog post or a newspaper that's selling content on a pay-per-read basis or pay-per-view basis if it's video. And that really is, to me, that's the whole killer app of Bitcoin. Bitcoin Lightning has really come into its own in the last 2 years, and it's very fast, instant payments, very low transaction fees. So it becomes very viable to have a content distribution system on the internet, which is peer-to-peer, which is monetizable without involving the need for advertising companies, subscription services. Everything can be done on a peer-to-peer basis, enabling freedom of information, because advertising is actually a form of censorship, in my opinion. If you're an influencer and you're being funded by Wallet of Satoshi, which is a custodial Bitcoin Lightning service, then you will find you have your funding pulled if you say things about Wallet of Satoshi that they don't like. So you're being censored by the fact that you are being sponsored. That's the reality. And a lot of the content that we see on Twitter is being reposted through influencers. So there's various different ways in which content is censored at the moment. To some extent, it's censored by the platforms themselves, either by banning content they don't like or by prioritizing content that they do like. And then, the influencers within those platforms are censoring through what the sponsors choose to pay for. So with NOSTR, we have a huge opportunity to change the game effectively. But I'd like to open the floor to questions. I hope what I've said has made sense. And if anybody has any questions about what they think NOSTR is or how they think it might evolve, then I'm more than happy to do my best to answer them.
Yeah, Lindsay, go for it.
So I haven't developed out this question a lot, but I'm curious, Simon, if you have an opinion on how this affects how NOSTR, in contrast to mainstream social media that we're using now, how the algorithms themselves and how they work with our psychology. How does the psychology of like the collective neural network of people using NOSTR and using that algorithm different from, or is it different, I guess is my question, from the psychology of using social media now with algorithms about like how much can we get people to be on the app and creating this addictive like impact on our systems? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. That's a really good question. It is, it's again probably something that most of us know about. We don't like to think about, but we know that the feed that we get on the internet is designed to press our buttons. The algorithms are tested. What's that, sorry?
Like so much research to create like addictive behavior. Is that right? Within like the current social media algorithm?
Yeah. I mean, something like Facebook obviously is the biggest. They have huge capacity to take a post that's posted by any of their users to monitor the reaction that's coming through from customers that look at it, so they can see how long you spend on it. They can even potentially monitor your eye movement whilst you look at it. They can monitor how much money you spend in the first 10 minutes after viewing that piece of content. And they can do a huge amount of A/B testing. If they put that bit of content in front of 100,000 users and see how it scores on their KPIs, then they can decide whether they want to show it to other users. So that's how things tend to go viral or get up the algorithm on a social media platform, is by creators that understand the algorithm. They know what the algorithm's looking for. And unfortunately, for a profit maximizing platform like Facebook, their incentive system is to give you the content that will achieve most engagement and ultimately lead you to spending most money with people advertising on their site. So it is very much appealing to the lowest common denominator. And acting in a very clickbaity kind of way. I know it's not a real word, but clickbaity is what algorithms are, and they're designed to get you to interact, get you to consume that bit of content, stay on the platform, spend money. That's how they make money. With NOSTR, you potentially have a very different situation. The NOSTR clients that exist now are experimenting with algorithms. Some are trying to have like what's trending. Obviously, that's their proprietary thing. But I think the fact that people are zapping for individual items of content creates a really strong feedback loop. Not for what's going to get engagement or get advertising revenue, but for just to indicate what people have appreciated. So again, if Forrest creates that funny cat video and puts out on NOSTR, and I decide to zap him, and 10,000 other people decide to zap him as well, then we can be pretty sure that we appreciated that content. And we probably watched it through all the way to the end and sent him some money because we thought, yeah, he's obviously spent some time working on that. He's created a great piece of art or a great piece of education, and we appreciate what he's done and we've paid. So that content deserves to go up the algorithm. That deserves to be prioritized above a lot of other content where people maybe just didn't zap anything at all. Maybe they gave small zaps. But yeah, it's an indicator of actual quality on a crowdsourced basis by the other users of NOSTR. And they've not just given a like or an upvote, because those are free and potentially are not worth a great deal. We've actually parted with our hard-earned Bitcoin to give it to Forrest to demonstrate appreciation for what he's done. So yeah, what potentially comes out of that then is a service, and each different NOSTR client can experiment with different algorithms. And certainly with Primal, which is a very good NOSTR client, they're giving the user the option to choose their own algorithm. So they can choose what they want to prioritize, whether that be zaps or likes or whatever we can figure out to be, maybe time engaged or who knows. Yeah, there could be all kinds of things we can discover that we can have algorithms to work on. But one of the issues that many of us have the internet now is it's a fire hose of information. There's so much content out there. The content is getting so little monetization that it is actually very poor quality quite often. Creators are unfortunately financially incentivized to create low quality content that achieves engagement. What we really want is probably less content that is more high quality, and we want a way of finding that really good content. So my vision of, I've got to re-say what you said here, Lindsay, the neural network that is NOSTR. My vision of what that can become is a great service where people that have more time and less money will spend their time searching through new stuff that's posted on NOSTR. They will reward it with zaps, and they will repost it through other social media that will bring people into NOSTR, and they will potentially be rewarded for finding that content early and being part of that human intelligence algorithm that creates a feed for other people that perhaps don't have as much time but have more money and are willing to pay. So yeah, this is great. I just discovered all this amazing stuff, and I'm willing to donate to the creator, but also those first early people that found it and pushed it up the algorithm and got it to me.
And I see your hands up. You have a question?
Yes. I hope the sound is working. I just want to be sure that I completely understand it. So with NOSTR, you cannot access any of the normal internet. Like you cannot go into Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. There would have to be created similar social platforms through NOSTR. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can only go into Instagram with your Instagram user ID. So your NOSTR identity wouldn't work on there. Unless Instagram had a revelation and decided NOSTR was the future and tried to import everyone's NOSTR IDs into Instagram and said, yep, you can now access through here. Maybe at some point they will feel like they have to join us rather than beat us. But at this present moment, there is no integration between existing social media and NOSTR.
That makes sense. And thank you for sharing so much about it. It's very fascinating to listen to. It made me think about a company I heard about years ago. I'm from Denmark. It was a Danish company that tried to create a single user that you could use on all the different platforms that requires trust. Because they could see, you know, oh, then you have to like on Airbnb to do a lot of things so people can see, oh yeah, she rented out her house many times, or she was a good guest many times. And you have other platforms where you also have to build up your trust on all of the platforms, instead of having one single identity. So it sounds like what you were saying is similar what NOSTR can do, but in a different universe. It sounds like, in a way.
Yeah,
It's not
I
on
think
the
you've actually.
actual internet, right?
It is on the internet. It uses IP addresses. It runs kind of on. It's a layer above the internet. It's a layer on top of the internet, where the communication, anyone that's providing an application that enables you to communicate on that layer, the default is that they respect your identity. And I think you've actually hit the nail on the head there with the word trust, because we trust Instagram with our identity. We trust Twitter with our identity. If there was a super service that gives access to all of those platforms, then we would all be trusting that one service, and all of those platforms will be trusting that one service. And it would be a real concentration of power, and their ability to actually restrict us from every service would be almost absolute. So the key word with NOSTR is decentralized. So your data is held on relays. That's the R in the word NOSTR. So notes and other stuff transmitted on relays. And anyone could run a relay. And if they connected into the NOSTR network, they're holding the data of lots of different users that choose to connect to that relay. The data is replicated across different relays. If anyone were to try to shut down NOSTR, they would try to find relays and they would shut each individual relay down. Whilst they're doing that, others would pop up. They don't know where they all are. It's a decentralized system which is very difficult to stop. But because it's decentralized, you're not having to trust in a single entity that has control over your identity. That's what gives us freedom of speech and ownership of our own data and self-sovereignty, to have access and connect with people without restriction from powerful, centralized organizations.
Is this similar to the blockchain technology? Is it the same? Similar?
It's definitely inspired by Bitcoin. The reality is most people on NOSTR at the moment are actually Bitcoiners. And as I said, the zaps that we use to monetize content on NOSTR are using Bitcoin Lightning. So my view is that NOSTR is the killer app of Bitcoin. I think this is what Bitcoin has always needed, in order to make it very useful. And I think the two will evolve together. But it's not just for Bitcoiners. And this is one of the things that the people within the NOSTR space, you know, they will tell you, you know, this is not just about Bitcoin. And personally, I mean, when I speak to people and they're interested in Bitcoin, I tell them about Bitcoin. And some people are interested in digital money, they're interested in new technology, and they'll spend the time going through the work to have some Bitcoin and to use some Bitcoin. But when speaking to people about NOSTR, it's a whole different experience, because lots of people that aren't interested in Bitcoin will still be interested in NOSTR. Like I say, the kind of anxieties we have about data monitoring, privacy, control of data by centralized counterparties are things that we've all had to deal with, even if we don't use a lot of social media. You know, whenever we use the internet, we know there's potential for our data to be monitored, potential for it to be abused. So NOSTR gives us an alternative, which it depends upon more people using it. It's, in my opinion, it's a bit like trying to use email in 1990. It was a very early stage technology at that point. You had to be a Unix programmer in order to send an email. And the first people to use it had no one to send emails to. So it wasn't actually useful at all. You had to wait about 30 hours for your email to get there. So it was a very bad user experience that didn't have a great deal of utility. But as we went through that decade, more and more people got onto email, and the user applications became much, much easier to use. By the end of the decade, almost everyone could use email, and lots of people were using email, and all of their friends were on email, so the network effect kicked in. I believe we're going to see a similar path with NOSTR. I think it's going to be a process whereby the early adopters are doing a bit more work to figure out how to use it. They've probably got some really geeky friends they're sending messages to on NOSTR. And over time, it will become more and more mainstream, more and more usable. But the fundamental benefits of it are so strong that it's, to me, it looks almost inevitable that we will all end up with an internet that we access through our NOSTR identity. And it will be a whole lot more wholesome, better content, and better freedom, better privacy than what we have right now.
I'm celebrating as I'm hearing that, and I'm also seeing that while I'm raising my physical hands in the air, Lindsay's raising her digital hand. Lindsay, do you have another question?
Yeah, I actually have so many questions. I love this new paradigm that's being created, co-created by so many amazing people. I'm curious, Simon, with AI coming in and it being really difficult to know who is who on the internet at all, especially on social media, does having the key fix that to where we're able to like know that whoever you're talking to is actually who you're talking to?
Yeah, AI is an emerging beast, isn't it? Yeah, we're all having to kind of deal with bots on Twitter and captures
Especially as
that.
content creators and having personalities or branding online. It's such a
Yeah,
wild west right now with AI coming up.
yeah, it's difficult. The AI is getting cleverer all the time, and it's going to be more of a problem for us going forwards. I think there are bots on NOSTR already, and there's no way of stopping bots from creating accounts or people creating bot accounts on NOSTR, because it is an open permissionless service. So with Twitter, Elon Musk is probably paying lots of people to try and find out who the bots are and shadow ban them. Whereas with NOSTR, there's no incentive to do that. There's nobody that has the job of getting bots off NOSTR. So the community will have to find solutions to these things. And yeah, I think at the moment, I don't know of obvious solutions, but the one thing I can tell you is that the days of the username password are probably numbered. And we're probably all seeing this already, because when we access a service with our username password, we're now getting the captchas, which we've been having for quite a few years, but those captchas are getting more and more complicated because AI is getting better and faster, and ultimately will be better at solving every captcha than we are. So to have a username password, because the problem is any password can be brute forced. You know, they can run a system that just goes through all different possibilities, and eventually they will find your password and they will have access to your account. So captchas prevent that multiple attempt attack at passwords. But as I say, when AI gets better at captchas, that won't be a defense against brute forcing your password. So your username password will not be an effective way of accessing any internet services securely. And it's really a race against time that we are facing right now. With a NOSTR identity, the number of possibilities of your private key is so high, it would take computer systems billions of years to figure out what your access ID is. So we don't need captchas on NOSTR. And that's how we potentially deal with that issue of the username password becoming redundant, is to move to this new form of identity that's a NOSTR identity that's not going to have the same issues that traditional forms of internet access systems are going to have probably within the next few years. Yeah, so There's two sides to it. Yeah, the downside is that NOSTR is open permissionless and we can't stop the bots. But the upside is that that identity system is far more secure than anything we've used before. And it potentially solves problems that will inevitably be coming.
Thank you.
Something I can add here, and it actually relates to the ARM actions that Forrest was doing there. You do them again. Do your ARM actions, Forrest. I like them. There you go. So I'm running a project on NOSTR at the moment, which is called Fanfares. You just made me think of it doing those ARM movements. So fanfares.io is an application that we're building. It's a NOSTR client. I've got a small dev team that I'm funding to work remotely and build the application. And the thing that we're doing slightly differently to the other Nostr applications is we're enabling content creators to gate their content. So what you have at the moment is all content is free. People pay as much as they like as a tipping kind of busking kind of scenario. What we want to do is enable creators, and we're specifically focusing on podcasters to begin with, so they can create a new podcast. They can put it behind a pay-per-view paywall on Nostr through Fanfares. So they might set a price, which might be 10,000 sats, which is $5, or they might do 1,000 sats, which is just 50 cents. But the user will have to pay the money before they access the podcast. Or they could do it where you get the first half of the podcast for free, and then the really interesting bit at the end has a paywall behind it. There's multiple different ways of doing it, but it goes back to that scenario that we talked about with the newspaper article, where they want you to subscribe. What you really want to do is just pay a small amount of money for that one article. So we're creating a Nostr client whereby a creator will probably go and put all of their content on Spotify or YouTube, as they usually do. They might put 5 minutes worth of adverts in there, but they could put a version of that podcast onto Fanfares, which will be visible to the Nostr community. So it gives them a bit more coverage there. They can do a version of it without the ads in, and charge maybe 50 cents for it. So I don't know about anybody else here, but 5 minutes of my time wasted listening to adverts or trying to click on the fast forward button on my app is certainly worth 50 cents, probably in fact worth at least $5. So I'd be more than happy to pay that to listen to my favorite podcast without wasting the time on adverts. The model that's really been kind of implemented here is much like a pay-as-you-go Patreon. Never used Patreon before. That's where you subscribe to your favorite creator. You're getting content without advertising. You're getting premium content where they potentially have special guests on and they're not going to put it out as free. Or you're just getting content a week early or earlier that's going to go out on other platforms. So we have the ability to save the pain that people have of going into Patreon, where they have to put all their name and address and some credit card details in and subscribe. We're able to just have that monetizable individual item of content through Fanfares, where the listeners are actually genuinely donating to their favorite creator without having to give a commitment or without having to spend the time putting credit card details in. But they're also feeding an algorithm. They're actually saying, "Yeah, I'm willing to pay for this." It's a vote. Tells the rest of the community that they see value, and it potentially gives other people the chance to experience the same content that they are enjoying.
Can I ask a question about I guess the other digital identity pieces? Like in my part of the world, there's a lot of people who are asking questions around digital identity, and like basically they're like, yeah, this is the most important thing we need to solve right now. And I've heard of a couple of other organizations that are doing that. And since I'm not familiar with the space hardly at all, I'm curious about what it looks like from your perspective. Like, is there like a race to become the digital identity, or is this a kind of situation where Nostr would exist beside a couple of other places and I would have multiple digital identities?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I have to be honest. I mean, I came at Nostr from the point of view of somebody that wanted to make micropayments for content work. So I the identity thing was not the thing that really appealed to me. It was the fact that you had this existing audience, a network of people that were able to zap each other for content using that protocol. So I was, once I understood what NOSTR was and saw it working, I was very much sold on its ability to do that better than anything else I'd seen. The fact that you have your self-sovereign identity is an amazing part of NOSTR as well. But I haven't taken the time to compare that with other self-sovereign identity services that might exist out there. To me, that's more of a cherry on the cake. And when I have looked into it more deeply, I can see that the fact that you take your identity from one application to another is what really enforces the incentive system to not have ads on those services. But yeah, in terms of actually being able to rank the NOSTR identity solution versus whatever else there is out there, I haven't had time to look at the other alternatives. So if you want to go and review that one and feed back to us, then that would be great. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's some writing that someone's done out there, Substack or whatever, and they're actually talking about the pros and cons. You know, it may be that people are doing things better in other places, and that can feed into NOSTR development, because NOSTR is entirely open source. That's the thing that I've learned really since being in NOSTR, is it's really educated me about what the internet is, how it evolved. I mean, all of the protocols that make the internet work, TCP/IP, HTTP, they are all open source technologies. The people that created them had no ownership of them. No one owns those things, and they get no revenue from them. They've created them, you know, as a social good, effectively, as a means of free communication between people that have computers. And NOSTR is another one of those protocols. So it's not something that people own. NOSTR is a set of rules about how NOSTR applications can communicate with each other. And inherent in that is the fact that individuals' identity is respected. And that's what makes it appealing for people to come and use that protocol. So it's really worth understanding the difference between a protocol and an application. Facebook is an application. It's owned by a company. It provides a service. Some would argue a very useful service. Others would argue that it's slightly corrupted in terms of the way that it generates money and the way that it manages data. So that uses the HTTP protocol. It couldn't exist without the HTTP protocol. There's already hundreds of NOSTR applications that use the NOSTR protocol. And they don't own it. They may contribute to the further development of NOSTR. And you know, the things that will be developed are very organic. You know, people will try to build new stuff, and if people use it, then it will become part of the protocol. If people don't use it, it will die. So it really is a very democratic system, which nobody owns, but we all contribute to just by the fact that we either use it, or we build applications on it, or we tell other people about it. That's how networks build.
I just want to name, in addition to questions, I will also want to welcome anyone can just share impact, like what happens in you as this conversation's happening, or how it is for you to hear. So if it's not explicitly a question, but just what it's like for you to be a part of this conversation, that's also welcome and invited.
I'd just like to ask, do we have anyone in the community that owns Bitcoin right now? There you go, 2 of you. So you now have a way of using your Bitcoin. You can get a Lightning application and put it into, I'd recommend Primal, yeah. Download the Primal app. You can put some Lightning into there, and you can find some content that you like, and you can zap.
Does the money stay in the Primal app, for example, or is that connected to the key, and then depending on what client I use, the money moves to?
So yeah, Primal are operating a wallet within the application.
Okay.
So if you've got Bitcoin Lightning in a Bitcoin wallet, then you can send it into your Primal app. So that acts like a wallet in itself. You can spend it, or you can earn sats from other people. And then you can take that out. You can move it onto an exchange. You can convert it into dollars. If you want to do that, I wouldn't recommend that because the price of the dollar is going down and the price of Bitcoin is going up. So it's better to keep it in Bitcoin, but yeah, it is transferable. That's one of the things that gives it a value, is that there's a liquid market out there for Bitcoin. And whatever you spend or whatever you earn within NOSTR is realizable into actual dollars. Or if you're living in Uvita, you can get it into your Bitcoin Jungle wallet and spend it on a coffee. That's one of the amazing things about Uvita, is you really get the feeling that Bitcoin is real. It's not just a made up consensus Ponzi scheme that a lot of people think it is. That you can go out there with your mobile phone and buy real stuff. I have to give a disclaimer here. And sorry, go on.
Oh, I have a question about partners that you might see in terms of carrying the NOSTR protocol and working on some of the other new networks rolling out. Something like Versus .ai and Core Nexus .is, and of course Holochain and Trust Graph. All of them kind of providing similar features that you're describing. And I think there's synergy available with, hey, we're both going in the same direction. We're both using technologies, and with Versus, you have a core AI engine that's different than large language models. It actually works more on real-time data and has a really good architecture. But that can do a whole bunch of things, but that's a whole other topic. I just was wondering if you had any partnerships of other new networks rolling out that might look attractive.
I mean, for us as a project, Fanfares is entirely focused on NOSTR. We don't have the time to review other decentralized protocols, and we only really have the time to build on one for the time being. It's going to take us time to get to kind of production level. There may be benefits to other decentralized protocols. I think certainly if you've got an AI engine within them, I would question whether they're actually decentralized, because that requires a large database of data. Yeah, I think whatever else there is out there, I'm certainly keen to hear about it. But from what I understand, NOSTR is the only one that's really kind of decentralized. As far as I know, it's the only one that's using Bitcoin to exchange value between its customers. Yeah, but if you think there's something out there that does the same thing, then maybe there is potential for partnerships in the future. But I don't think we're there at this stage. I don't think we're ready for partnerships that will span across multiple decentralized networks.
Understood. And that's a perfectly good answer. And I see this changing so rapidly that, yes, making partnership decisions when you didn't even know they were there, all of a sudden you know which ones are in harmony with what you're doing. Another thing that AI is going to be able to point out is that we can start analyzing the relationships so much clearer with there's certain institutional mindsets, right, that carry over. Even how Bitcoin started out as really decentralized, but then we end up with a few miners, and it costs a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, the mining pools have been a bit of a centralization. The transaction fees have gone a lot higher. That was always the inevitable result of success. At the beginning, you know, the blocks weren't even full and every transaction was free. The miners were only earning the block subsidy, whereas now the transaction fees are a lot higher. I mean, that does solve the problem of what are the miners going to do when the block subsidy runs out in 2140. They will earn transaction fees. But yeah, I mean, that's why we have a layer 2 like Lightning. You know, it's a way of solving the cost. It's exactly what Satoshi talked about when he built the first layer. First layer was intended to be very decentralized, very secure. That's what is the real store of value. Things that are built on top can be faster and cheaper. And that's what enables real utility. And NOSTR, in my opinion, is only really any good because of Bitcoin Lightning. I mean, it did exist before Bitcoin Lightning was implemented into it with the zaps. But the zaps are what makes it really work.
I agree. Yeah, but there are going to be many other types of currency that are more focused on architecture design for a village, or designing, new layouts for Earth that are more efficient, repurposing a lot of infrastructure because of its obsolescence. There's going to be a whole bunch of reorganizing, and the markets that I see are really at risk are well, pharmaceuticals. When we start seeing that there's ways of measuring cures, not treatments, it changes the whole architecture, especially when you're voting on, well, how many negative side effects come with a medication? It's like, to that degree, it's obviously not as effective as that which has fewer side effects or gets to the source instead of later on the chain. And so health is going to make a big, big difference. And the pharmaceutical industry has a lot of side effects.
Yeah, I mean, my personal view is that if COVID taught us anything, it was that the entire pharmaceutical industry needs a severe change of some kind or another, because the incentive system that exists in that one is pretty horrific, in my opinion.
Exactly.
It may be that the things that we're building with these new protocols offer a potential solution to the problems of the pharmaceutical industry. I really hope they do. I don't know where we begin to start with that, because the big pharma companies, are controlling the narrative on American TV, and they are telling people they need to take a lot more drugs, and they're giving pharmaceutical grade speed to kids. They're giving people opium for painkillers. It's horrific what's going on. It's very bad.
That's right. But that's all going to get exposed, including the reporting of it. And we're already seeing a lack of trust in the mainstream media concepts, right? There's way lower direct viewership, and you're getting fragments in more and more distributed, decentralized, diversified interpretations of what's going on in the world. Anyway, this is getting into a real psychology talk on media, but what I'd love to see is that, like, I would love to talk to you about DAOs and what we're playing with in another organization model called TAOs, toroidal organization, autonomous organizations. And we're working with how to organize in more than 2 or 3 dimensions. And any social media architecture that forms the relationships based on how nature forms relationships. This is why I chose cybernetics. I wanted to design in harmony with living systems. And I see that trend of organizing economies, particularly, work into that model far more effectively. And health, the same thing. Science, even, the same thing. But I'm getting off track here. Let's get it back to why you're here, and I really appreciate the presentation. And I'm going to look deeper into it, and I would love to have a further dialogue on some of the other systems that are working in parallel and could be in synergy.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a lot of work being done with alternative currencies, with DAOs and smart contracts. You know, potentially some very good use cases will come out of that space. Unfortunately, there is a lot of fast money being made by creators of projects that are presenting ideas to people that maybe they don't really understand, and they're buying digital assets that potentially don't have a persistent long-term value. So whatever you're looking at in those kind of spaces, I would say definitely be careful with what you invest in.
Mhm.
I mean, no matter what you're looking at, always be careful with what you invest in. But the opportunity with I mean, there is no NOSTR coin. You know, NOSTR is not a project that has any kind of asset associated with it. It enables Bitcoin to be transacted between people, but it doesn't have its own coin. So the entire thing, I think Jack Dorsey actually helped fund the development of it. A lot of the work that's done has just been done purely pro bono by individual developers, by business analysts, by people that understand what can be achieved. So it's a very different thing to a lot of the promises of decentralized media that were coming through Ethereum and Solana with the NFT projects in 2020 and 2021. It's a totally different solution. And you know, we certainly looked at, you know, the whole NFT space, and we thought that had the potential to become a decentralized media solution, but unfortunately it hasn't. It's become a market for art, which people hope the value goes up and they can sell it on to somebody else. And yeah, it's not really delivered on the promise. But yeah, it's, you know, you know, if you're paying for an item of content, you know, it's you're buying it because you want to consume that content, not because you want to sell it on to somebody else. That's the way NOSTR is.
Yeah. And that brings up something you said earlier, though, about other things regarding trust and non-monetary type currencies, where the free ones, right? Like I'm thinking of this this one crypto called Seeds, and Seeds within their community give out gratitude tokens. You know, 100 gratitude tokens per month, and
it's one of 25,000 cryptocurrency projects.
Exactly.
Most of which are Ponzi schemes, unfortunately. I mean, I don't know Seeds personally. They might actually be a very honest bunch of guys that are producing something very valuable, but I don't have the time to look for all 25,000 to find the good ones. And
That's
I know
right.
for certain that at least 90% of them are Ponzi schemes.
Well, that's what AI is for too, right? Where we can actually analyze you see I don't know, I'm getting off into the weeds again, too technical maybe. I would just like to pass it along. But I would love to stay in touch with you, Simon. I have some other ideas.
Yeah, definitely would be good to stay in touch. I mean, what I can say is I've been in the cryptocurrency space for 10 years now, and the biggest test for me in any new thing I'm looking at is it Bitcoin? Because if it's not, then it's probably a Ponzi scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my experience, you know.
Well, there are how many new currencies in the last 10 years where we don't have to counterfeit currencies, and so that's spreading, and the use of it will find local, you know, memberships, communities that start utilizing. The good ones will rise to the top, and the ones that are graded differently through artificial intelligence based on, is it a Ponzi scheme or not? And it's not hard to analyze. And there's a whole emergence of solutions. Like I mentioned, several networks out there that are doing kind of similar things to what you're doing. just differently, and not as much of the Bitcoin focus as much, or in terms of a whole bunch of non-monetary currencies that work to vote in what currencies of exchange you need in the old markets or old economies. The new ones will have different ways of exchanging. But that's maybe just 3 years out. Anyway, I'd love to continue a dialogue, and especially around some of the other networks and what they're doing, and particularly in the AI space. Check out Active Inference as a core AI project. Oh, and I just saw something on morals graph. One of the winners of OpenAI's contest for grants on alignment issues with artificial intelligence. And they have a really good architecture on how to model morals that keep transforming toward higher, more universal values, to make a graph of the better choice. What's the wisest choice in this situation? With many factors. So it's one of these pieces that are going to have a remarkable effect on all of our networks, right? Because we can actually emerge more in relationship instead of win-lose. We can start moving in win-win-win directions quite readily. Anyway, that's philosophy from.
I want to check in with Corby. It seems to me like Corby is. Have you been waiting on to share something for a bit now? Is that true, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to invite you in, man.
Thanks for reading my mind. Yeah, so very fascinating. I'm curious if you guys have niched down into specific communities in order to try to get this off the ground.
The Bitcoin community is the natural first adopter. I think really it's the content creators. So the Bitcoin podcasters will be the key content creators that we think will achieve monetization through NOSTR to begin with. Once they are succeeding in doing that, that will get the attention of the other content creators, potentially Bitcoin adjacent content creators, and they will want to come onto the platform in order to achieve more monetization and more freedom in what they say, rather than being dependent on sponsors. And hopefully they will be inducting their listeners into NOSTR. So the whole thing has the potential to be a very virtuous circle with very strong network effects. I think it's all dependent on having more user-friendly applications, having more people understand what NOSTR does and what it can potentially become. So it's a mixture of education, tech development, and hard graft by the people involved, which is going to take time. You know, none of this is going to happen quickly, but we're working on that. You know, I mean, I got to say, you know, it's something that I always love to talk about. You know, people ask me about NOSTR, I'm more than happy to give my time to explain it to people because they do believe in the project and they believe it has a great future. You know, I'm spending the money that I've made out of Bitcoin over the last 10 years on developer salaries to build better user features for NOSTR so that it becomes more usable, again, because I believe in the project. So I think these are the things that are going to move it forward. And yeah, I mean, the decentralized platforms that do exist, they won't like it. They will try to find ways of maintaining custodial identities, which is effectively what they really are. They're managing other people's identities for them. there'll probably always be people out there that will want to get stuff for free and will be happy to have their data abused for that service. So I don't think we're going to go 100% NOSTR overnight, maybe not even in 100 years, but I think having this alternative is going to be an amazing thing for anyone that really understands the nature of media, the nature of content monetization, because we are there's a real problem there in the creative world where when we used to have CDs and DVDs, then creators could actually monetize quite effectively, but the internet has really brought the cost of content creation and distribution down to a very low price. And that has meant that the margins that creators are able to achieve for actual sales of media has been very much eroded. So it's created this kind of perverse monetization model of advertising and subscription, which no one really likes. Maybe the people that are able to effectively use those tools, maybe they like them, but they're not really good for anybody.
And how long has NOSTR been around?
I think they first started building it about 2 years ago, and people started to get on it on the Bitcoin community about a year ago. The first NOSTR event was in, I think, May of last year in Costa Rica. Since then, there's been one in Tokyo. I understand there's going to be one in Latvia, in Riga this year. So if you want to find out more, the way to find out more is to get onto NOSTR. If you go on there, then you will find out about events. You'll meet people that are doing things on NOSTR, and you'll be able to learn more. If you have any questions that I can't answer, sorry, go on. We had a question there.
Somebody coming in, Simon.
Sorry, it was me. Hi, it's Elon. Sorry.
Welcome, Elon.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi, everyone.
And my last question is, you said Jack Dorsey is part of it. I'm just curious, like, how deep are the pockets with investors and all that, so this can have longevity and really have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, Jack Dorsey funded the initial development of the NOSTR protocol, so he's not actually part of it. He doesn't really own it, but he's part of the community that sits around that protocol. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it doesn't matter. If he didn't give any more to any developers, the development's still going to happen. It just wouldn't happen as quickly. I think it's good that there are benefactors like that around the place that are willing to spend money on things like this, because there will be attempts at reducing the effectiveness of NOSTR by the incumbents. So having some money to fund some development means we can get there quicker and be more effective. But I don't think the long-term effectiveness of NOSTR is going to come down to funding.
Gotcha.
There's enough
And
open source developers out there that are doing it for free.
And sorry if you already said this at the beginning, but did you give a definition of the word NOSTR, like what that means as far as a social media platform?
Yeah, it's notes and other stuff transmitted on relays. So a note is like a tweet or any bit of content that you're putting out there to the wider world. Other stuff could be audio, video, memes, transmitted on relays. The relays are the nodes in the network, effectively the servers that hold the data. And the data is replicated across multiple nodes in the network.
Thanks for answering my questions.
We'll probably have time for one more question before I've got to run for my taxi and my flight.
Yeah, and if you're open to it, Simon, maybe we could use these last couple of minutes to share some appreciation and acknowledgement with you. Are you open for that?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just a space for anybody to share any appreciation that you have for Simon and or for Noster or this call, anything you want to share. We're just gonna have a few minutes, but Simon, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thanks for making yourself available for this. I feel deeply grateful for your passion. I remember the first time I sat next to you and I just looked at you from across the room and I was like, I feel like you have something really important to tell me about Bitcoin. And you're like, yeah. And just went off for like an hour with all of your passion and all and
Yeah,
enthusiasm.
that was a nice evening at the Awake Center. We still had a lot of the Bitcoin conference people hanging around, so we had a good long chat about Nostr and Bitcoin at that point. But yeah, I mean, thank you very much for the invite, Forrest. Honestly, I love sharing my knowledge with the people. I love talking about this project because I am passionate about it. Yeah, so it's great to be here. And yeah, anyone wants to follow up with me, I've put my NPub there into the chat. So download Primal. The app is probably the easiest way to get onto it. And copy my NPub into the app, and you'll be able to find me and connect with me there. Feel free to DM me, and I'll answer any questions that I can.
Yeah, I
Hi,
mean,
Simon. This is Elon. I was just gonna ask, I'm sorry, how did you say we could reach you? I couldn't catch, I didn't understand.
So into the chat, I've put my public key, my Nostr public key. You'll see it there. It's 3 messages ago in the chat. So in order to connect with me, you'll need to download a Nostr client, and the one I recommend is Primal, which you can get on the App Store. I don't think it's available on Android. If you want Android, you'll need to get something called Amethyst. And then yeah, you copy and paste that public key, which is that long string of characters, into the application, search for it, and then you'll see my profile. You'll be able to connect with me, and you can ask me any questions you want. Primal is the best way to get started. You'll just see a whole lot of feed of other people's posts on there. You can experiment with zapping. You can experiment with posting yourself. If you're new to it, it's worth just putting a post out there saying, I am new to Nostr. Please tell me about it and send me some stats, and people will.
I'd love to share that I had that experience during the Bitcoin Freedom Festival, where I downloaded Noster, was introed into the community, and then I received sats and then was able to just take my phone, move it into the Bitcoin Jungle app, and then purchase food from the place that we were at.
There you go. It's the easiest way to get Bitcoin is to earn it.
Completely decentralized.
Yeah. Yeah. Recommend that to everyone here. Get on Primal. Get the community to buy you a coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I'm going to run. It's been great to chat with you all. Thank you very much. And yeah, genuinely, please do connect with me. I'm very happy to answer questions. And have a
Thanks
good
for
day,
your time,
everyone.
Simon.
lots of love. Be well.
Cheers.
Hey, everybody. So in this moment, I'm